if we learn more about his music in the films, then maybe he might be considered to have a little more depth in the way that, people respect Beth a lot for her music, right? Maybe if we had Laurie's music actually represented at all, we could actually see the part of him that is more serious.
I felt that with the 1978 series because I just been watching it.
Okay.
Yeah, and he plays the piano in that one. And then there's also this conversation about his parents and how his grandfather doesn't like that he plays music.
I don't remember that. I watched that one, I think, like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I guess that the big things that stuck out to me was how Susan Day was way too pretty for the part. And of course, Captain Kirk.
He's not so bad, Bear. Like, the accent is terrible, but
yeah, I was
like
going to say
otherwise.
His German accent is terrible, but William Shatner has a more solid body type. He's a little more condensed. So I feel like he's the right physical form for Professor Bear. But no, the German accent was just terrible.
There were some scenes that I really liked in that one. Like, there's a part where he actually is looking for a job outside New York so he can go and make some money and buy a house for Jo. I like that. And then there's a part where Miss Kirk comes and like, look, Professor, Mrs. March has published the story. And then he's like, my Jo, like he mumbles, my Jo.
I love how each version, depending on when it was, you can see the decade it was made in. And I feel like the closest one to escaping that is the 1994 version, because 78 one, it's such a 70s version,
Yeah, those trousers.
Yes. And I'm like, have you ever seen, there was a miniseries called North and South. It was based on the John Jakes novels.
I know that one, but I haven't seen it.
Well, I mean, I think that it's a fantastic miniseries, but it was made in the 80s. And again, it's also a Civil War era thing. But the costumes, there is so much shiny polyester in it. It's a very engaging miniseries, but it's a time capsule. It's an 80s time capsule. And that's what it's like watching that 1978 Little Women. Also, this is a 1970s Little Women. That's also how I feel about this 2019 Little Women. It's too much of this time period, the costume and the hair,
If Jo would wear that male costume, whatever you like to call it, in public, she would have got into prison or something.
At the very least, her family would have been completely ostracized. Even the Lawrences would have broken ties with her.
That would have been considered very inappropriate. And then Meg having her hair loose in her wedding, that would have been considered very inappropriate. But like really that boy's dress that Jo is wearing, it would not have been accepted during that time period.
And like in that time period, when you were considered becoming a woman, you weren't allowed to wear your hair down anymore. So really, they're not going to be wearing their hair down from the time period where they would be considered coming out. Looking like 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds are not going to wear their hair down. The fact that Meg had her hair down for her wedding, it's like, oh, isn't that lovely? That's what they're doing nowadays. But that's not what they're doing in the 1860s.
I didn't find the 2019 Jo to be like Jo in the book, because you have her in this male costume, but then she's also incredibly feminine because she doesn't have that long, clunky body type, and she's not clumsy because there are no hoop skirts and there are no corsets. Her movements are a lot more smoother than, for example, Katharine Hepburn in the 1933 film. But then, like Jo in the book, she is almost like an elephant in a porcelain store.
Yeah.
Because she's so clumsy, and then the clothes, there's so much of it, it makes her even more clumsier.
Yes. Because, I mean, they wouldn't have necessarily been wearing their hoop skirts at home when they're just in their house. They would have been wearing them when they went to the parties and they went to those things. So it would make sense why she would be twice as awkward when she goes to a party, because she's just going around the house. Why is she going to wear hoop skirts? One of my favorite scenes from that 1933 version was when Jo goes over to see Laurie and they start jousting with the fireplace stuff. And I thought this is such a good representation of really the relationship dynamics of these two, of what the book is showing you, because she's looking at him as the playmate she's always wanted, because he's a boy and her sisters aren't as good at that kind of play. And half the time he looks at her the way she wants him to look at her, which is like another boy. And so he'll joust with her, but then, oh, she falls down and it's, oh, she's a girl. And I think that's a good representation of how their relationship was too, is a lot of the time, Laurie filled that void that Jo needed, because she wanted to have a brother instead of these sisters. But that didn't always work, because he still would look at her as she was a girl part of the time. And then eventually all of the time.
Thank you so much for listening. A link to the full episode, I Hurt Myself If You Say No, Red Flags in Laurie's Proposal, is in the description. Take care and make good choices. Bye.